Where am I?
Right where you need to be. The name's Televisor, or Telly for short. I even accept your savior once I show you this. Now consume, watch it, endure it.
No! Well, because the internet and now a literal TV from decades ago is forcing me to, why not? Let's talk about glitch production. At this point, it's impossible to not know about the indie animation studio thanks to their hit shows like Murder Drones and The Amazing Digital Circus. Honestly, it's crazy seeing them change the game real time. They went from uploading here on YouTube to having one of their main series on Netflix. Like, they didn't sell the ownership or anything, no. The series still continues on YouTube normally, but now you're able to stream it on Netflix as well. I don't think there's ever been a scenario like that, or at least to this degree. Unless you want to count Coco Melon. That then begs the question, how did we get here? Most of you watching probably know them from their hits that I mentioned, however, that isn't all they have to offer, regardless if they want you to know that or not. I would know this because, well, I was an SMG4 fan. Wait, hang on. I'm getting very mixed reactions here. Raise your hand if you're gasping because I'm a fan of SMG4. Alright, now raise your hand if you gasp because you don't know what I just said. I see. For those who don't know, SMG4 is another channel here on YouTube. It was created by Luke Lurwichagel all the way back in 2009, with uploads beginning in 2011. These would consist of sketches with Super Mario and Luke's self-insert SMG4, as the two would go on wacky adventures. I bring this up because this led to Digital Circus getting on Netflix. You see, SMG4 as a web series is still going to this day, and you better believe throughout all its years, it did a whole bunch of experimenting. In 2017, things were getting pretty big with videos now going under a production founded by Luke and his brother Kevin that they called Glitchy Boy. Another thing that would soon happen would be the introduction of arcs. Prior videos were more episodic, even if rarely some level of continuity would be addressed. All of that would change with the first storyline in 2018. The Waluigi arc, which went all in on forcing you to watch every single episode from this time, because if you didn't, then what the hell is that? That, dear viewer, is Tari, introduced in this very arc. She's a shy, quirky gamer girl that was utilized fine enough within the story. Her true moment to shine came as a sorta post-credit scene to the finale, where at that time little me was like, whoa, SMG4 is making a video game! Before SMG4 himself came to my house and said, no. This was actually a teaser for a secret project that Luke and Kevin had been working on for some time, being Meta Runner. Before continuing, there is one more thing to note about this teaser, and that's the sound effects used. Play the clip. Listen closely now. The static sound, guys, it's from FNAF. Guys, the static sound from FNAF Game Over screen, guys, it's the static sound from Game Over FNAF. I'm never escaping from FNAF. Meta Runner would premiere in July of 2019, with episodes from Season 1 being uploaded weekly to SMG4. At this time, Glitchy Boy was already rebranded to what we now know as Glitch Production. If I may, the story behind Meta Runner is actually an interesting one. Before Tari was created, Luke was already looking to add a new character within his videos, and that's when he noticed his younger sister doodling. Luke then asked, hey, you got any ideas for characters? And she said yeah, creating a 100% robotic gamer girl named Tari. Through tons of revisions, the two brothers saw potential Tari had, and decided to not only introduce her within SMG4, but also create an entirely separate canon in a fully animated show. Did this all pay off in the end? Yes and no. There's only one true way to answer that, and that's by going over the shows that aren't talked about as much these days. They might be bad, they might be hidden gems, who knows? Now don't start to panic, you Murder Drones and Digital Circus viewers, because I'll also be giving my take on what made those shows so successful. Without further ado, let's dive into the first animated show by Glitch Production. First, I just want to say we have a Patreon that's as little as $1 a month with a bunch of cool other tiers. There's also a merch store if you want to get some pretty coolio stuff. Supporting these will go into helping me stay around YouTube longer, so give them a look if you can. Thank you. In this futuristic world, it's basically be a gamer or be nothing because this society operates a ton around it. The best position to have is to be a meta runner. These are groups of people who replace their limbs with a cybernetic arm, allowing them to be better at the game. That is until we're introduced to this random employee, hoping to revolutionize gaming with a project he dubs Project Blue, which creates Tari. Things don't seem to go as planned though, as Tari wakes up alone in the aftermath of an experiment gone wrong. She leaves into the city and passes by outdated jokes and references until she stumbles into TaskCorp. Task Corp is said to be one of the top dogs with an incredible line of esports members, with their best player being Belle, who Tari sees in the other room attempting to get a world record in Not Super Mario. Belle fails, causing her to most definitely end up on Best of Gamer Rage Part 47, and once everyone leaves, Tari decides to give the game a go. Discovering her arm gives her the ability to automatically perfect the game. She starts getting way into it as she, well, literally gets into the game. Here we're introduced to Theo, a child who isn't the brightest but means well. We see him and Tari start talking as they befriend each other. Surprisingly, through their chat we learn that Theo is well aware he's in a video game, until Tari is suddenly taken back into the real world. And so is Theo. This is thanks to Lux, who is this super kind, ultra nice, he's the villain. He tries to manipulate Tari into joining Task Corp so he can research her, but her and Theo are able to escape into the streets, into a joke I'm proud to say I predicted.
Hey NPC lady, can you give me a hint on where the secret
I
loot is
swear,
in
if
this
they do
level?
a nice
The other tomato isn't
cosplay, bro,
talking. I
type
think he's
joke
mad at
here.
me.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing cosplay!
Unfortunately, Tari is captured for like a minute until she's rescued by Coconut Boy and a new friend named Lamar. He takes them to a hidden base where they meet Sophia, a computer geek, and the edgy one. Here is when the main plot starts kicking in of Tari needing to join a resistance team to take down Lux and Task Corp for all their evil doing, while also trying to get Theo back into Ultra Jump Mania. For what it is, I found myself to be surprisingly entertained by it. You guys know those moments when you revisit a media you enjoyed way back when, only to discover the thing you liked wasn't all that good? Yeah, no, that's definitely not the case here. It's not perfect by a long shot. It has problems that we'll get into, however, I do want to highlight the positives. Firstly, I really like this world. I think visually it's pretty, the technology they have is fun, and the games they go into have neat ideas. It's one that definitely gets me thinking about what it would be like to interact with it. I'd 100% play Ultra Jump Mania myself any day of the week. Secondly, I really dig Tari in this. One of my biggest concerns when revisiting this was me only caring for Tari because I liked them in SMG4, and I'm glad to say my fears were put to rest when I realized how invested I was in learning Tari's backstory with her. That does sort of bring me into my third positive, in that I think the show completely works on its own. I could see casual fans enjoying this show thanks to its charming main character and the drama surrounding them. I can also see SMG4 fans enjoying it, not only for what I mentioned for casual viewers, but also because of its cute references and nods from what it's based on. I really do appreciate the fact Metal Runner has a clear style and tone, one that isn't afraid to go a little dark, at least compared to its source material. That brings me to the ending of the season, which does require me to give a bit more context. Leading up to the ending, we see the team's plan to enter a gaming tournament hosted with the Task Corp servers. The idea is that if Tari can get inside the game to perform a glitch, it will shut down the servers, giving Sophia enough time to hack into Task Corp's network to uncover all the shady things Lux has done. Once the tournament happens, things go semi-smooth with Tari entering the game and having her friends play from their computers, until one by one get taken out, and it's just Tari and Belle, who was sent to eliminate them all. Guys, if I'm going to be talking about this scene, I have a confession to make. When I first saw Belle briefly torture Tari, little me genuinely teared up as I drank my 2 Oreo shakes. The food delivery service made an error that day, don't question it too much, but you better believe I was crying with my 2 shakes. Thankfully, through the power of friendship, Tari is able to beat Belle and perform the glitch, thus allowing the good guys to win. For a brief moment. Yeah, while their plans technically worked, they weren't able to escape in time, meaning Lux comes in pretty pissed off at everything. Not only does he break the arm of the edgy dude, but he almost ends him too. This is until a deal is made where Tari offers herself to work at Task Corp in exchange for the freedom of her friends. Lux agrees for the most part, but keeps Theo in a limbo state, threatening that if their deal is tampered with, Theo will be done for. This is what I mean by the darker tone. Not only does the villain mean business with some of his threats, but him winning leaves the show on a temporary depressing note. Even after all these years, this ending makes me still want to watch more because, yeah, screw this guy, I want to see Tari happy, damn it. I won't say too much on the animation since it was the first of its kind. Even then, it's not that bad, except for Theo. Ooh, Coconut Boy, you've seen days. Yeah, they've seen days, that's all. Most of it you could tell is motion captured, so I don't really find all too much to criticize. I mean, it looks good enough. What isn't good enough is the humor in the show. I mean, with the tone of the show, it isn't much of a priority, although when it does attempt to be funny, it leaves little to no impact. One of my more bigger issues, though, that actually hurts the show are the side characters. Way too much of the season was focused on the planning part that the show sort of forgot to give the side characters a dynamic with Tari. It sadly comes back to bite in the finale where I'm meant to care about the fate of these guys. And I want to see Tari happy in the end, just not really caring about the rest of them. It doesn't help the fact that these side characters themselves aren't all too interesting. I hope you find Lamar's body pillow funny, cause that's all they got for him. Or Sophia being loud and awkward, cause that's all they got for her. As for the edgy one, his fucking name is Masa, and I bet nobody cared that I didn't say his name until now. Overall, I'd say Metarunner had a good start. I'm hoping I've convinced at least one person watching to check out the season for themselves, because believe me, I did leave out some details and major plot points that become relevant at a later point. With all that said, let's hope the solid start wasn't just a fluke with... After season 1 of Metarunner, we received a spin-off pilot within the same universe starring our favorite coconut boy, Theo. Was it able to justify its existence? If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I wish I knew another coconut boy because boy I did not care for this. The plot follows Theo needing to defeat the Crab King. Perfect. Sounds like this would show us, the audience, what a day in his life is like. It sorta does? One of the biggest problems right off the bat is that Theo both feels like he's lived in this world and that he was just born, or coded, yesterday. It's inconsistent basically. Like, there's a scene where he needs to platform the equivalent of the final stage in Super Mario Odyssey where you question how the fuck you maintain this, and somehow Theo is able to have the mindset that you can exploit the section. I mean, he is a video game character within a video game world, so maybe this is meant to show he's well adjusted to his surroundings. Except later when he encounters the Crab King, it's played out as if Theo is seeing this thing for the first time. By the end of it, we see the whole episode was taking place throughout one level, so that then begs the question, why do we have a main character with an inconsistent knowledge of its own environment? You might be asking, TheBlueGuy, why must you be so harsh to the story and character in what's essentially a comedy? While I believe a solid character and world can contribute to better comedy, if we were to set that aside, we still have a show that's pretty unfunny. That isn't to say the jokes themselves aren't good, more so the delivery of them. I'll admit, there are scenes that I look at and say, I should be laughing. The joke here isn't bad, and yet nothing. It might stem from voice delivery or animation, or maybe even both. Example, the scene where Theo finds a way around the platform section. The casual walk as the bush prop falls over should be funny. However, the animation just doesn't do it justice. I feel like for a show within a video game world, the style would have needed to match that more. Really, this joke could work if maybe we saw a generic video game run cycle go into this bush. Heck, the joke could be elevated if we saw the bush fall over and have some collision problem. Unfortunately, we're left with this awkward couple of seconds. The lamest part in my opinion is the ending, showing us that Theo within this pilot isn't even the same one from Metarunner. Okay, it's sorta cool how they connect this back to an episode of the main series. Although, after that, you're left wondering why this show would need to exist. It doesn't follow Theo we know, the world and characters aren't anything special, and the humor especially is way off. As a pilot, I failed to see what would bring me back for more episodes because there isn't much of a hook. And again, I know I keep saying this about the show, but the concept here isn't bad. I dare even say it's shockingly good. Within Metarunner, we see that Theo is very much aware that he's in a game, so it's not unreasonable to assume this version is aware too. Could you imagine a show following a self-aware video game character that's from a collectathon within the space of futuristic gamer society? I will give credit where it's due and say that bits and pieces of that are attempted, it just doesn't go all the way to create something truly substantial. To wrap it up, I'd say Ultra Jump Mania is pretty aimless. I wouldn't be surprised to learn that Glitch Production thought the same, as this is the only pilot of theirs that wasn't picked up for a full series, and likely won't ever be, since Theo's voice actress resigned from Glitch earlier this year regarding controversy over Tari's VA replacement. Plus the obvious of the show simply not being good. Oh boy, season 2 of Metarunner. I remember being so hyped as the episode slowly dropped. By the end of it, I thought it was not only one of the greatest follow-ups, but also an amazing season on its own. How is it nowadays? Well, let's take a closer look. The season shows Tari making good on her end of the deal, now being a popular gamer at Task Corp. Unfortunately for us, the show immediately displays the decline in quality with this intro. I forgot to mention it for season 1, but that theme went so hard. It was all like, I'm always running. Yeah, that's the part, yeah! Here, sorry, the intro doesn't do anything for me. Oh, how dare you, Glitch Production. I'll show them by recapping more of the season and slowly discovering I still like this. Episode 1 sets up multiple things for the rest of the season, such as Tari promising Theo the GATA Task Corp, Sophia and Lamar informing there's still hope of beating Lux, and Belle attempting to discover what happened to her partner, Lucinia. Who's that, I hear you ask? A former MetaRunner employee who Tari had seen visions of throughout the first season. Lucinia didn't add much at the time besides being a mystery, until now where she gets promoted into being relevant to the story. You mix all that mystery and drama and you got yourself a season that... fuck, I still like. Before talking more about the story, I should address the change in the art style. After a while of adjusting to it, I literally cannot see the show any other way. To be fair, anything that isn't Season 1 Theo is a blessing, and I'm happy to report that he looks way better here. If I had to give one complaint, it would be that the skins are a little too perfect on some of these guys. Like, jeez, everyone in MetaRunner not only plays video games, but apparently puts on 7 layers of skincare. Moving back to the multiple plots, I find them all equally investing. Yes, even the side characters. You know that lame joke with Omar and his waifus? That comes back in such a funny and clever way with Tari stealing a phone containing a game she thinks he would play, being an online anime dating sim. She travels in and locates him, which is how the band gets back together. Also, Sophia isn't nearly as awkward, which is all I need. Luckily, we get the bonus of her having a good joke or two. And as for Masa, well, he's still edgy, just without a meta arm. He does win one later in a gaming match against a guy named Marco, where a deal is made that if Masa beats him in what looks to be Cars the video game, then Marco would give Masa a new meta arm. After the match, strangely, it's heavily implied that Masa cheated, so, you know what? He's both edgy and a cheater. Sure, yeah, I'll take it. Moving on to the Meta Runners at Task Corp, I gotta say, I like seeing Belle have a redemption arc. It begins with her going behind Lux's back by breaking Theo out of his prison due to his ability to glitch into the Task Corp server. She makes a deal where if he could track down info on Lucinia, she'll make it worth his while. This leads to a video being uncovered where it shows Lux purposely covering up Lucinia's supposed death. Luckily at this time, the original gang is reunited, so now with Belle on the good side, it's time to see, well, basically the ending of Season 1 again. I might as well get into the negatives, since the latter half is where they appear the most. Again, this is basically the same thing as last season. Gaming tournament, hacking the server, blah blah blah. The plan for the most part goes well until this, bitch comes in. You see, since Belle and Tari are on good terms, the show needed the replacement for Tari's rival. Thus, we have another esports member named Evelyn. It's not necessarily that I hate her character, more so her usage. At first, she's the typical self-centered, bitch, and ultimately is harmless to the story. You know, just setting up her hatred for Tari. It isn't until the gaming tournament that I start to hate the direction they take her. You see, as the heroes get what they need and make their getaway, Evelyn comes back for one last attack on Tari for ruining her night, until she's shoved into a room and locked in. With how bratty and entitled she's been, an anticlimactic ending where she sobs away alone would have been perfect for her. Plus, spoiler alert, it still justifies her being a villain in Season 3. Sadly, we get Tari warping into Theo's prison, which is now a glitch version of his home, and Evelyn comes back as a literal boss fight. To me, it feels like this section is padding, which leaves a sour taste in my mouth for the character, who wasn't even anything special since she was a gotcha paper cut. Thankfully, the ending mostly makes up for all that. The gang safely reunites and Lux gets exposed for all his criminal activities. Masa now holds him at gunpoint while the police make their way over. However, everyone and their mother still wants to know about his involvement with Lucinia. The series up until now has made us believe she died with the creator of Project Blue, way back at the start of the show, with the twist being how Lux not only tried to cover it up, but had some involvement in it. Well, the truth is, Lucinia isn't dead. Instead, she was only injured and entered a coma that she wasn't able to wake up from, due to part of her mind being broken into fragments that would enter the AI program of Project Blue, better known as Tari. That's right, Tari is an AI. With all that out there, everything seems cool. We got answers, and now Lux is gonna get what he deserves. Strangely, Masa's arm starts glitching out, and heavy TF2 pows Lux. This leaves the show on a crazy cliffhanger, as Masa and Belle get left behind for the police to capture, while the rest get a visit from Marco. Overall, this is still a great follow-up. I'm satisfied with the new art style, the growth of the cast, the lore that's discovered, and how I'm left interested in seeing how it all wraps up. Maybe not too quickly. After all, we could use a breather with a relaxing vacation. On an unrelated note, I'll admit, I'm a bit burnt out from MetaRunner related media. Wait, what's this? An entirely new show by Luke and Kevin? And it's also set within the world of SMG4? Hell yes! An expansion of this is only needed. The last show was an SMG4 spinoff, following a female side character where they had an unlikely friendship with a small thing. So I'm curious to see what they'll do with this new show, following another female side character where she has an unlikely friendship with a small thing. Alright, while these two may have similar concepts on paper, they do in fact go in different directions. While MetaRunner is a good show, to truly have the greatest Sunset Paradise experience, I need to bring up some stuff from the Blue Mario series. After the success of the Waluigi arc, we'd get more following, with the one relevant to Sunset being the anime arc. While going into detail isn't important, I will say the series is a mess. In the 12-episode storyline, anime is banned in the Mushroom Kingdom, with Mario and gang needing to reverse it. Which they do, by episode 7. What? If the conflict is finished, why is there still 5 more episodes? Well, viewer, let me introduce you to what they call shit sorta coming out of nowhere, otherwise known as a bunch of Inklings getting kidnapped along with Meggy. Now, what the hell does that mean? Well, Inklings are half squid, half kid, originating from another Nintendo franchise called Splatoon! Sorry if I butchered that. And they have Coolio Ink-related powers. Within the canon of SMG4, Meggy is just another Inkling. However, one day she comes across Mario, where eventually they become friends, leading her to become a pretty frequent character. She becomes a major factor during the anime arc, as it's revealed Inklings can be used as a power source to make drawings come to life. This is taken advantage of by the villain, who is not only responsible for kidnapping Inklings, but also Meggy, in order to use their power to create an island full of waifus. The villain has a machine that is used to take Meggy's power, and by the end of it takes so much she becomes a full-on human. Episodes following would show how she's struggling with this new form, especially with how she had to leave her old life behind for a while. To simply put, Meggy now struggles for a purpose in life, and that's where Sunset Paradise comes in. A show that follows her on a solo vacation where she wants nothing more than peace after all the events I had mentioned, and also to find that new calling in life. Now you might be thinking, wow, TheBlueGuy, that was kinda a lie you dropped on us. Why not review the show as it is? However, if you go into the show with none of the info I gave, you'll be wishing you were doing anything else. Unlike MetaRunner, this show lives or dies based on your care and knowledge of its main character prior to the spin-off. I don't mean to imply that Sunset is confusing or something to new fans. No, it's boring to them. I genuinely can't imagine someone with zero knowledge of the show where weird shit goes on in an igloo saying that Sunset Paradise is a great show. Normally this would be the part where I talk about the damn series, but honestly it's such a struggle to remember. You think all the SMG4 lore I dropped was a lot to take in? This show gives you way more to take in, and that might make you ask, hang on, shouldn't you remember it then if it had so much? Yeah, I should, shouldn't I? By the end of the series, it doesn't have time to give a satisfying conclusion to the majority of what was set up, thus making such a forgettable series. Wow, that's funny how that works. Although I said it was hard to remember, I'm still gonna do my best to give you guys a full recap to make my point on why this show doesn't work. Before that, I actually do want to give one whole positive before I completely tear the show apart. And that positive is the animation being fine. It still uses most of the techniques from previous series, however this one tries to bring more of a video game feel, as said by the creators. I could see elements of what they were going for, and for what it's worth, they're sort of fun. Even if that style gets kinda dropped by the end and the action scenes look like ass. Okay, recap time. As previously said, Meggy wants to relax on her vacation. However, the island she's at has a massive criminal issue. The bigger issue is that there's only one sheriff dealing with them, being a kid named Ori. This causes for an unlikely team-up with a friendship forming between the kid and Meggy as they go around stopping crime. The one on top of all of that is a villain named Benedict Cumbersnatch. His main goal is to harvest the island's most important artifact, the Phoenix Egg, which he'll use so he can restore back to his true form. This can only happen via the Phoenix Festival, which is a festival held every 100 years that somehow creates this. Look, I'm doing my best here and trying to remember the show, but it doesn't help knowing I still got more villains to cover. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised to learn that Luke and Kevin's favorite movie was the cinematic classic, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2014, because boy does this show love having a bunch of villains that amount to nothing. First, you got the Spud Duds, incompetent henchmen working for the main bad guy. They aren't all too funny, and I can't help question their existence when there's also the second group of baddies, the Funky Force. To give credit, they come in later in the series, so at first I was thinking, okay, the Spud Buds were just a warm-up, and Benedict is probably gonna fire them, or maybe even kill them. Except SMG4 came to my house again and said, this doesn't make sense at all. We have two groups of 4 that work for the same villain, serving the same purpose within the narrative. I guess by default, the Funky Force is a bit more interesting since not only are they given more screen time, but they have a deceased 5th member. Oh cool, dead people. The 5th one is known to have a family, which ties into the group's motivation of working with the villain, who promises to keep his family safe from his wrath once his plans go through. The Funky Force job was not only to split Meggy and Ori apart, but also hypnotize Meggy into killing the mayor. The group's motivation feels so shoved in at the last minute, like the creators wanted the viewers to go, "Oh, they have a family, oh." The only problem is all I can feel from this scene is more confusion. Why? Because this is never brought up again. It's the textbook definition of forced emotion. At this point, I already hate them. There isn't much you can do for redemption. Not like they want to because they play it straight with being typical bad guys. If you're gonna have a scene that tries to justify their action, you also have to back that up with writing. These characters should have been written more as people simply doing their jobs rather than we're hypnotizing Meggy. Then after that, maybe you can have them redeemed or something. Or maybe even drop the character without proper conclusion. Hey, would you look at that, we're now on the 3rd villain. I wonder why. Whisk is a thief, also working for Benedict because of course she is. Her whole thing is that she has 2 personalities. With her mask on, she's a meanie head, and with it off, she's not a meanie head and is more of a cat girl. Her relevance in the plot really shines when she has to team up with Meggy for a reason I 100% remember. During her relevance, it seems like Whisk could become a good guy by the end of it. She doesn't. She then appears in the finale where she's commanded to fight Meggy, which ultimately she loses and then runs away. Yep, they just leave with no satisfying conclusion. Because of that, I feel it's fair to not even bother going into more detail with her character. Next one. The 4th villain, if you can believe it or not, is Shadow Meggy. Take a wild guess in what her role is in the story, and chances are you are right. She's just here to tell the audience, Meggy, what she's feeling, which is always a negative feeling. She's so underutilized that the story has her combined with Whisk during the final fight. Not as in they legitimately merge, no. Mentally, in Meggy's head, they merge. Because these 2 characters are perfect metaphors for one another. I'm not sorry at all if this section was a complete mess because I have literally given you the experience of watching Sunset Paradise. I've barely even touched on Meggy and Ori's friendship, you know, the main hook of the show. And that's because there's nothing to say. It's so safe and so bland with how these 2 interact with each other. Ori is the innocent, optimistic one, while Meggy isn't. They have a falling out before the climax that barely lasts. Ori sacrifices himself in said climax, but turns out okay. Again, nothing to say. It feels like the show is written with these many generic tropes without understanding why this trope is done to begin with. Example, before the final fight we see the mayor sacrifice himself in order for Meggy and Ori to get away from the Funky Force. This is the attempt of the classic character sacrificing themselves for the greater good. The reason it doesn't work here is because we barely know this guy. What, you think I just forgot to mention it during my recap? No, I didn't. He doesn't do anything. He's so forgettable that if you look him up on the SMG4/glitch wiki, you'll find little to no info on him that doesn't relate to his sacrifice. What surprises me most is that SMG4 has done this type of story beat before, and it worked. Bringing this all back to the anime arc, we saw Meggy forced to team up with her rival, Desti, as they both were prisoners to Geico. It wasn't Shakespeare writing, although it was nice to see their relationship go from rivals, friends, to then... well, to SMG4 making me cry. Sure, this wasn't at all a sacrifice, however, it does show Luke is capable of creating a likable character with an impactful death. So saying none of that translated here is super disappointing. To wrap it up, Sunset Paradise is a bad show for a general audience. If you're a fan of SMG4 though, I think you'll find it okay, except I guarantee most of you won't have the desire to watch it again. Fundamentally, for a show like this to work as either a spin-off or a standalone, it needed to either take place in such a unique environment or have a character arc so interesting and different for Meggy that we couldn't have possibly see SMG4 doing that themselves. If it wasn't obvious, I think the show accomplishes neither of those. The characters weren't anything crazy in Metarunner, but I still found the city to be really cool. The island in Sunset Paradise though? Man, I could load into a Mario Sunshine map on Gmod and I'm there. Wowee, look at me, I'm having so much fun. As for Meggy's arc, the show ends with her discovering that she now has the desire to help people. Yeah, great, I'm sure glad I sat through this whole show to see our main character get the most vague purpose ever, hooray! Yeah, that's enough, I've spent way too long talking about this. Please, Telly, thing, please no more of this show, okay?
Oh, thank heavens! I cut scoliosis from that program!
Trust me, on any other day I would ask my semi-kidnapper how, but honestly, we're lucky that's the worst that happened.
Yeah, you're right.
Well guys, we're here, the final season of Metarunner. The wait for this was insane because instead of waiting a little over a year, we had to sit through a little more over a year. Sucks to be baby me, I get to watch the finale anytime I want. So with that said, is this a satisfying conclusion? Yeah. It's also easily the worst season, by the way. That might be a little confusing to process at first. I guess the only way I can explain myself is to go into a bit more detail. The finale kicks off with Marco playing a pirate-like game called Skybreakers. It's a solid enough opening, reminding us that this guy is a pretty great gamer, and in no way actually meant to be foreshadowing for where the majority of the season will take place. Marco decides to check up on Tari and the gang, who are being held captive by him. Marco says he doesn't have bad intentions with them personally. He's only bitter from last season when Masa cheated during the Cars video game. He proposes a deal that if Tari and gang beat him properly, he'll call it even. Tari looks like she's gonna do her usual getting into the game, however, her warping seems to be hacked as she's transported into a domain ruled by Evelyn. This kicks off a fight sequence that Tari loses, thus having Evelyn take her back to the guy all the way back from episode 1, Sheridan. Yep, not only is he alive, but he's taken over Task Corp. His old shtick was that he created the Metarunner arm, but Lux took all the credit for it. So now he's back all, pretty upset about all that. He's kidnapped not only Tari, but also Belle and Masa, trapping them all in the meta world. Not only that, he confesses to be the one responsible for hacking Masa's arm and making him, well, do that. Because of that, Sheridan says that Tari has served her purpose, and now will be set for decommission, so that her data fragments can go back into reviving Lucinia. Things don't go as planned when Theo shows up, who I guess was warped here too, because he ends up rescuing Tari and they both make a run for it. Sheridan sends Evelyn to finish her off since he's collected enough data from Tari. Thankfully, Sophia is able to hack into this meta world and open a gateway for Tari and Theo to escape through. Just when you think they're safe though, Evelyn shows up behind. Tari throws Coconut Boy to safety, and in a Thor Ragnarok moment, gets thrown out of the portal, now ending up in a completely different destination. Where does she go? To Skybreakers. Alright then, I guess it wasn't used that much in the intro, so maybe a little extra time here wouldn't hurt. Of course, by extra time, I mean the remaining rest of the show. I hope this is what you imagine as the primary location for the finale, because if you didn't, today was the day you learned that life is a bitch and it's Metarunner Season 3's fault. If I'm gonna continue summarizing, I might as well get into the negatives. For those who haven't picked up on it yet, I do not like the pirate stuff here. It's such a random choice to be here for so long that it makes the show boring to watch. Basically, all that happens now is throughout the episodes, Evelyn, who is now a gremlin, is hunting Tari down. Oh, I guess Lucinia is here too, only as a brainwashed minion of Sheridan. With the state she's in, it doesn't even feel like it's worth having her be Lucinia. This could just be replaced with a robot and nothing would change. There is perhaps one scene where Sophia, who, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, is Lucinia's sister, manages to get through to her. But then it stops, and we never really revisit that. Since we're talking about the villain's henchmen, we might as well talk about the villain himself. On the one hand, I'm glad that Season 2's ending was actually the end of Lux. We truly live in a time where I believe most shows would find some workaround in bringing back their main baddie. So with that said, this new guy's kinda lame. I won't pretend Lux was this perfect villain, although he did serve as a good threat thanks to his solid writing and good voice acting. Here, Well, I mean, he's got a voice. The biggest problem with him is that he's as powerful as, and excuse my language here, he's as powerful as a Discord mod. I cannot find any other way to say it. All he does is sit in his room as he controls the meta world. He even has a line that you can so easily imagine a Discord mod saying,
"You kids don't understand. I am the god of this world."
Now, not every bad guy is the same, and I could see they're naturally trying to do something different. Sadly, I can't say I'm a fan of the direction they took him, as he's too pathetic for such a cool design. Maybe that's what they were going for? You know, something looking more threatening than it actually is. I don't know, maybe the character just isn't for me. It's not like I even hate him entirely, because he has his moments. The part where he kidnaps a bunch of people into the meta world only to have them fight each other was a highlight. And, I don't know, this line was funny.
Wait, just checking. Do you want to join my team?
No!
Well, I didn't want to anyway!
Yeah, that's all I got. Honestly, on that note, I do want to bring it back to positives. Unexpectedly, I think this is the funniest season. It won't make you laugh out loud per se, more so consistently chuckling. I like Evelyn's introduction where for some reason it's a mini musical. It's so disconnected from what I'm normally used to seeing from this series that I couldn't help but laugh. I also like the joke here basically showing the plot of Digital Circus.
Alright, there be no killing players or NPCs in Vagabond's Landing. I'm going to be here forever.
Another strangely funny gag is the relationship between Sheridan and his Lux AI. Now, I don't know too much of what they call a toxic yaoi. I'm not religious like that. With my little to no research, I've discovered a definition that describes toxic yaoi as a toxic gay character that can be shipped with anyone that makes them experience a toxicity with them. One of the more genuine positive things I could say about Season 3 is the ending. Leading up to it was another Tarian gang fighting Evelyn, who has the upper hand this time by killing everyone, including Theo. That's incredibly bad because Theo is a video game character and won't really respawn in another video game. This makes Tari devastated, however instead of giving up, she still fights, eventually beating the gremlin for good. That was only half the battle though, as Tari still has Lucinia to deal with. She decides to lure her outside of Skybreakers, proving life is still good since we can go on without seeing another second of the pirate game. Take that, vegans. And now we're in the finale. In it, we see Tari and Lucinia have one last fight as Tari needs to hook Lucinia back to the machine from the start of the season in order to bring her back for realsies. It seems like our blue-haired quirky gamer girl is about to win, until Sheridan stops her. This is until Sophia comes in and stops Sheridan stopping Tari with her basically doxing him. Because of that, Marco shows up to teach this pathetic bastard a lesson, giving Tari enough time to end this once and for all. Sadly, as Two-Face gets cooked, so does his server, and Tari realizes the machine can only bring back her or Lucinia. Tari decides to sacrifice herself and give one last goodbye before... Toxic Yaoi Lux! The AI Lux returns to help Tari, informing her that there's technically a way to save her, Lucinia, and even Theo. Once telling her this, he makes his exit, leaving Tari to do what she will with that information. With some quick thinking, she's able to leave this series on a good note with Lucinia returning. Almost every character reunites, Evelyn gets sent to jail, Masa and Marco are cool, murder charges are dropped, and as for Tari and Theo, well, they're in a whole new meta world. One controlled by Tari. Sorta. It's all she could scrap together before the servers fully collapse, but hey, seems to be enough for the both of them as they happily run where they'll play video games till the end of time. Both then and now I still consider this to be the weakest season, although as time went on, I have accepted the fact that it wasn't necessarily due to a decline in storytelling. Season 3 clocks in at about under 2 hours, which makes it the shortest of the entire series. This is because the ending had 2 lesser episodes, totaling around 8 episodes compared to the usual 10. Sadly, even with that cut, I still wish they did more trimming. As is, we have a season with a solid opening and a great ending, with a big old tumor in the middle. It probably wouldn't have been the best view-wise, not that the show got much in the end. However, I think tightening up the story for one big hour special would have been so much more beneficial. In the end, I still consider Meta Runner as a whole worth checking out. I may have spoiled all the big stuff, though trust me, I did leave out enough stuff for you to go check it out yourself. With all these past shows now covered, we now must ask ourselves, what happened? The release of Murder Drones, that's what. Created by Liam Vickers, the series blew the previous shows away in popularity. The pilot alone has almost 60 million views. To give you an idea of how shock still that is, let me pull up the Glitch Productions site. There's fun facts explaining that Metal Runner has over 25 million views and that Sunset Paradise has over 10 million. Those are definitely no doubt impressive numbers, but you want to guess how much the pilot to the Murder Drone song has? Well, I just said it earlier, 60 million, how do you forget that? I won't be going into too much detail about the series like I have with the others, because it's not necessarily the point of the video, but it is important to somewhat summarize it. In this sci-fi horror comedy, we see species of robots called worker drones. On an exoplanet with humans, things go well at first until the humans pull a stupid and blow themselves up. Kinda, don't question it. Because of that, the corporation behind the worker drones send out disassembly drones meant to kill all the worker drones. In the present, Uzi and the surviving drone live in a wasteland of a world where they must survive indoors for safety. Uzi, though, is a rebellion type and goes out, eventually coming across a disassembly drone named N, who is a bit stupid. Through a series of events, they form an unlikely team-up to uncover their origins, while also discovering something much bigger and downright scarier. With proper context, I will give my reasons into why the show became so successful. Firstly, with 60 million views, surely we would start seeing the money on screen, and that we did. While the pilot may have used animation techniques from prior shows, all that gets thrown out by episode 2. The series looked good before, it's just now looks more good. Secondly, the way episodes were released. Since the project grew in scale, so did the wait time between episodes, meaning fans would have to wait months before seeing what would happen next. This, in my opinion, worked in the show's favor, as the gap would lead to fan interaction like theories and general discussion of the most recent episode. I may have not been an active viewer, although that didn't stop the internet from making me well aware another part was dropping, so it's safe to say this upload schedule worked out pretty well. Lastly, well, it's a pretty unique show. Not flawless by any means. If I were to say some of my problems, it would be that tropes can be overused at times, and I'm not exactly the biggest fan of the main character, and also the series isn't the easiest to get. That last part I see the most shared, and while one person watching might say skill issues, I myself don't even know if it's even a real flaw. Watching it, there will be points where I'm lost on a character decision or something, yet by the end I did want to learn more. I don't know, it's sorta a pro and a con. Like, I wasn't disappointed confused by the end, more so invested confused. The latter is a way better feeling any day of the week, as it shows I did enjoy my time with the series and only wish to fully understand what I witnessed. Then again, the show isn't all confusing. What it does get right, it gets right. The main antagonist, Sin, is such a cool character from design to voice. I genuinely can't get over some of their scenes where they could either be horrific or the second funniest part of the show. Oh, who's the first, I hear you ask? That would be the main reason I even like the show, N. I kid you not, anything this guy said had me burst out laughing. Easily one of my favorite characters to come out of Glitch Production, and was the closest to making me want to purchase him in his marketable form. Sadly, I couldn't, because apparently attempting to purchase 100 N plushies didn't make the checkout section all too happy. Later, I discovered the limit was 17, so yeah, expect TheBlueGuy reviewing 17 N plushies soon, 100% is gonna happen. Wait, Henry. Why am I blushing here? I'm not gay for him.
Are you sure about that?
Now, you listen here.
Don't forget who the artist is here.
Whatever. Point is, the story leaves you wanting more and characters that you can't help but adore. It's easy to see why the show popped off the way it did. Now, if Murder Drones popped off, then the Amazing Digital Circus nuked 247 planets for breakfast. Come on, do you even need an explanation? Might as well for those who don't exactly know what it is yet, somehow, yet have seen it everywhere. In this dark comedy, we follow a woman, later named Pomni, getting trapped in the virtual world along with 5 other people. They have an AI host named Kane who forces them all on wacky adventures to distract them from the fact they'll never leave their new home. Being the most recent show of Glitch, with only 3 episodes as of now, it's insane to see it quickly become the most popular show. You think the view comparison I made with Murder Drones was crazy? Wait until you see Digital Circus pilot with over 350 million views. There isn't much I need to go into detail with the show or even explain popularity, since the things I said about Murder Drones apply here. That doesn't mean I have nothing to add. In fact, I think this is the first Glitch series with a memorable soundtrack. That isn't just me telling you. The ending theme for the pilot became such a huge meme back when it premiered. While I personally enjoyed the humor of Murder Drones more, general fans will tell you this is the funniest show Glitch has to offer, and they have every right to tell you so. Not only that, the story around it is interesting. I'll admit, the first 2 episodes didn't blow me away like it did for others. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was good, it's just I needed to see a bit more. Thankfully, with the most recent episode, the show finally clicked for me, because damn, they really put the dark and comedy into this. The 3rd episode's plot of exploring a spooky mansion brought with it some fun monster designs. Weirdly enough, the best way I can describe them and their scenes is like a Disneyland ride. There's something scary yet magical about them that you're left smiling the whole time. I also appreciated the side plot with a character we haven't seen much of. At first, it seems like we'll explore how these guys feel being trapped in a prison with no chance of escape, and we do. This alone would have been enough, however, the episode includes a scene displaying how the AI host could be tampered with in some way. It's brief, but it gets you thinking about what will become of this. In general, the episode was good at setting things up, tied with beautiful imagery that will definitely get people online theorizing. My only general criticism would be how on the Glitch site, the creator of the show went into the show proposing, what if it was Toy Story, but everyone was a jerk? At this time, I fail to see that concept, besides Jax. Even then, Toy Story 1 Woody outmeans Jax any day of the week. Don't even try to have that debate with me. To summarize, Murder Drones and Digital Circus are not only quality shows, but they have a good strategy behind them. One that has created a fanbase always craving more. This leads me into my final theory of why Metarunner and Sunset Paradise aren't talked about as much, and that's because they suffer from the spin-off curse. It doesn't necessarily take too much effort to discover that these shows have some sort of connection to SMG4, leaving most to not be interested in checking them out. To them, it was this, except now with girls. Ugh, who would want to see that? Kids these days probably look at anything SMG4 related and say, nah, that's for babies. I need to watch something more grown up, like Has-Been Hotel. Basically, your average viewer is more likely to watch a mature original show, rather than a mature take based on content meant for a younger audience. That's a real shame, because I believe Metarunner is a quality show. Unfortunately, if this video is anything to go by, it's that a good show can only get you so far. I guess you need that special something along with coming out at the right time. Things Metarunner apparently didn't have. I'll come out and say it. It hurts knowing a series I liked way back has been forgotten by both fans and the production behind it. I get it, I really do. The new stuff prints money and is of quality. However, it still sucks to go in the Glitch store and see the Metarunner merch gone, with the remaining marked as sold out. It's also disheartening to see the posters celebrating the brand only have Taria's representation for Metarunner. Even then, it seems to be reused from the Glitch intro, while others get completely new renders. I could go on, like how Metarunner's anniversary got no mention besides a Twitter post advertising a Glitch membership where Digital Circus was heavily used to advertise it, while a show like Metarunner was pushed way off in the distance, but you get the point. Once again, I highly recommend anyone watching to go check out Metarunner. Heck, why not? Go see the pilot to Ultra Jump Mania. It may not have been my thing, but it's worth it to see if it's yours. Oh shit, Sunset Paradise is a thing. Too bad it sucks. Okay, I did it. I watched and talked about everything I needed to. Now, I got something for you, TV man.
And what would that be?
How does an old TV like you even know anything about what I just talked about?
Well, I'm gonna ignore that old comment of yours and simply inform you that I would have assumed someone like you would understand the method of getting views.
Is this your way of telling me you're forcing yourself in my videos now?
Pretty much.